Can you solve all these mass spectrometry questions? Which is the first stage of mass spec? Smart pick. Ionization is the correct choice. Mass spectrum is mainly useful for finding. On track. Molecular weight is the correct answer. Light behaves like both a particle and a dash. Nicely done. Wave is a solid answer. What ratio does the mass spectrometer detect? Right choice. Mass to charge ratio is the best answer. The tallest peak in the mass spectra data is called. Nice work. You chose base peak, and it is correct. What kind of particles are used in mass spectrometry? Great thinking. Cations is the right choice. Mass spectroscopy uses one of the following as source. Perfect. High-energy electrons is the correct choice. Highest mass to charge peak in mass spectra is called. Correct response. Molecular ion peak is the most accurate answer. Fragmentation in the mass spectrum detector occurs in. Clear logic. Your choice collision cell is sound and 100% true. The following are the types of mass analyzers except. You're right. Ion flight is the correct answer. Which is not a component of a mass spectrometry machine. Good job. Your answer light source works well here. High abundant fragment peak in mass spectra is called as. Excellent choice. Base peak is the right answer. Mass spectrometry is not a spectroscopy technique because. Great job. Does not absorb light is the accurate answer. Which of the following is not a step in mass spectrometry? Well reasoned. Adsorption is the correct choice. What is the most intense peak of the mass spectrum called? You got it. Your choice base peak is right. Which is the correct sequence for the TOF mass spectrometer? Valid point. Ionization acceleration drift detection is true. Mass spectrometry can be used for all of the functions except. Solid response. Detection of different proteins is a valid choice. In mass spectrometry, molecules are bombarded with high energy. Good thinking. Electrons is the right answer. Molecular ion peak of ethylamine in mass spectra will be observed at. You chose odd mass, and it is correct. Which element does this mass spectrum belong to? Smart move. Silicon is an accurate answer. Which of the following is a method of ionization used in mass spectrometry? Correct. Electron impact is the right answer. Who won the 1922 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his work in mass spectrometry? Sharp thinking. Francis William Aston is the right choice. Isotopic peak ratio of chlorine containing fragments in mass spectra will be in. Nice selection. 3-1 is the correct and valid answer. What type of sample cannot be analyzed by mass spectrometry using a batch inlet? Exactly. Solid samples make sense, and it is right choice. In mass spectrometer, analyte must be dash before analyzed based on mass per charge. Excellent. Ionized is a brilliant choice. Carbon has a relative atomic mass of 12.011. Which isotope is likely the most abundant? Well done. C12 is the right choice. Which of the following is not a main information gained from mass spectrometry analysis?
Strong choice. Atomic weight is the right answer.
What is the charge of the ions normally produced by ionization in the mass spectrometer? Well picked. +1 is the correct answer. The ions produced in the mass spectrometer are accelerated so that they have the same dash. Bravo! Kinetic energy is the answer. Which compound forms a molecular ion with a different precise molecular mass from the other three? Right again. Dimethylpropane is a valid answer. Which component of mass spectrometry separates ionized particles based on their mass to charge ratio? Correct. Mass analyzer is the right answer. Which type of bond break in preference to strong bonds during the fragmentation process in mass spectrometry? What? Correct response. Weak bonds is the most accurate answer. Following mass spectrum shows the presence of. Exactly. Chlorine makes sense, and it is right choice. What is the mechanism of action for MES measurement? Bravo. Mass to charge ratio is the answer. What do you expect the molar mass to be for this element? Nicely done. 91 4G-mol is a solid answer. What are the steps of operation in the mass spectrometer? Well reasoned. Ionize, accelerate, deflect, detect is the correct choice. Which element does this mass spectrum most likely represent? Great job. Boron is the accurate answer. Identify the molecular ion peak and base peak in the mass spectrum. Nice work! You chose 94, and it is correct. How many isotopes of this element are shown in the mass spectrum? You got it? Your choice 7 is right. Based on the mass spectrum, which isotope of chlorine is most abundant? Great thinking. C5L is the right choice. Which species would get deflected by the greatest degree in the mass spectrometer? Well done. 13C2 plus is the right choice. How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format. Good job. Your answer contact Narayan Chengda works well here.